of allowing such a person to be the leader presiding over that process of review. You want to talk about a reactionary, or reverting back to the bad old recent days. Consider for a moment in a week where we had our former sheriff, now convicted, at his sentencing claim that his crimes were just the way things were done, echoing a certain county commissioner's protestations just over a year ago, that he wasn't doing anything different than any other public official. We should reflect on a mayor and presumptive Democrat nominee who, when asked about his controversial party endorsement, responded, "That's just the way things have been done for at least 15 years. Ironic, it was just over 15 years ago that the commissioner's reign as party boss began. A decade and a half of one-party Democrat rule, 2 years of federal investigation, 39 now defendants so far, 33 guilty pleas with one more expected and one just charged today, if you hadn't seen the news. 1 conviction at trial, 3 more heading to trial. Look, our nascent county government is fragile. These reforms can easily be undone by those with the will to do so if those who were committed to reform last year, the overwhelming majority of those who voted in this county, and the good, well-meaning leaders of Greater Cleveland, Republicans and Democrats alike, do not remain vigilant defenders of reform, if all we do is allow different foxes to guard the remodeled henhouse. It is already clear that reform must go further. Areas like campaign finance disclosure, transparency into lobbyists and vendors, accountability in the contracting and procurement process have already come to the fore. Also earlier this year, the Republican Party of Cuyahoga County laid out in our platform the need for reform in the judicial system. We need to expand on the reforms initiated by the late Ohio Chief Justice Thomas Moyer, creating specialized commercial courts, and move further with drug courts, diversion programs, community-based corrections. As reported recently in the Plain Dealer, according to the Council of State Government's Justice Center, had Cuyahoga judges sentenced low-level felons to probation at the same rate as judges in Franklin County, over 1,000 fewer people would have been sent to prison. Now, why are these ideas conservative? Well, to start with, they are changes that can be made by us at the local level within the framework of current law based on what works best in our community. But also, at an Ohio average annual cost of over $25,000 per prisoner in our overcrowded existing prisons, and the lower total cost to society of rehabilitating rather than simply warehousing low-level offenders, these concepts are extremely attractive to the conservative mindset. But the only way these ideas take root is by improving the overall quality of our local judiciary. That is not to say that we don't have some excellent judges serving in the county. But I specifically applaud Michael Unger, the president of the Cleveland Metropolitan Bar Association, for forming a blue ribbon panel to recommend ways within the current law that we can improve the quality, preparation, and evaluation of judicial candidates. The name game has been played has been played by too many for too long, and a few egregious recent episodes have shaken the faith of many in our system of justice and the rule of law. I pledge that the Republican Party will work with the bar to develop proposals that we and the broader community can embrace and support to improve the quality and selection of judges, and call upon my counterpart and fellow attorney, Democratic Party Chairman Stuart Garson, to pledge the same. Now look, along with equal justice, what can be more fundamental to the freedoms of this nation than the opportunity to receive a quality education? With a graduation rate, for example, in the Cleveland Public Schools that's barely over 50%, let's talk about the needed changes to our system of public education in our state. We cannot fail another generation of our youth, particularly our urban youth. We must do, to reference the title of both Eugene Sanders' Transformation Plan and the book about the work of Jeffrey Canada in the Harlem Children's Zone, we must do whatever it takes. We already know that simply throwing more money at the problems of education doesn't solve matters. It is about how we use the resources we have and about doing whatever it takes with those resources to reach these children, to teach these children, and to give them the chance to succeed. However, CEO Sanders' hands are tied by Ohio law and union leaders' intransigence on the issue of tenure. We have excellent teachers in our schools, many high-quality educators. However, forward-thinking administrators like Gene Sanders simply cannot remove ineffective teachers. By way of example, according to the Weekly Standard, in the 2006-07 school year, only 10 of 55,000 tenured teachers were fired from New York City's public schools at a cost of $250,000 per removal. It's a problem across the nation. By comparison, 1 in 57 doctors loses their license, and 1 in 97 lawyers. Only 1 in 2,500 tenured teachers is ever removed from the classroom. Again, quoting to the Weekly Standard, consider Chicago. Fewer than 27% of Chicago public school 11th graders met or exceeded math and science standards expected of them. Quote, but the teachers responsible for these outcomes are virtually untouchable. According to Newsweek, the percentage of Chicago teachers dismissed for poor performance between 2005 and 2008 was 0.1%. In a district where only 1 in 4 students is proficient in math and science, how is it possible that less than 1 in 1,000 teachers is worthy of dismissal? David Guggenheim. Do you know the name? Anyone? He's the director of Al Gore's environmental documentary, An Inconvenient Truth. Hardly a conservative. Yet his latest documentary, Waiting for Superman, a scathing account of the teachers' union's stranglehold on our schools, features a study from the Hoover Institution's Eric Hanushek, which found that permanently removing the worst 5 to 10% of teachers from schools would vault U.S. students into the upper tier of global achievement as measured by standardized testing. But unlike D.C. Schools Chancellor Michelle Rhee, Sanders is bound by union seniority rules, leaving our major metropolitan school district with something less than the complete transformation that was envisioned and is so sorely needed. Now, look, you may have thought you would hear me talk in the context of education more about vouchers and charter schools. We need them. We need choice in education for our struggling families. Why? Because, as the most recent display of raw union power in the Cleveland teachers' contract negotiations shows yet again, the system of public schools will be slow to change and must be continually prodded, pulled, and challenged in the direction of better, higher quality education. However, as Luis Ubiñas, president of the Ford Foundation, wrote, quote, the solutions we embrace must work for the majority of students across the country, not only a lucky minority, end quote. We can not only keep expanding charters and vouchers, though do that we must, it is imperative that we break the union shop mentality and put the interests of children and families ahead of union bosses, protecting a few underperforming educators. To bring this back to the family, what I hear when I talk with public school teachers about the elimination of tenure and further about merit pay based on student performance, what I hear back from these educators is pretty uniformly, fine, evaluate me and my colleagues based on our students' performance and test scores. But what are you going to do about the families or lack of them? Not just parental involvement, mind you. Complete and utter breakdown of the family structure in our nation, in our city, and in our nation's cities. This brings me to my third example, federal entitlements and tax reform. U.S. Congressman Paul Ryan has laid out the roadmap, literally the roadmap, to rescue Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security, lift the debt burden, and promote job creation and competitiveness. Ryan's roadmap for America's future would reverse the current unsustainable policies of unchecked spending and ever-increasing deficits and debt, and would reform our tax system into 2 tax brackets, 10 and 20%, with a generous standard deduction and personal exemption, eliminate taxes on interest, dividends, and capital gains, eliminate the death tax, and replace the corporate income tax with an 8.5% business consumption tax. For, as Ronald Reagan put it so succinctly, the problem is not that people are taxed too little. The problem is that the government spends too much. Consequently, according to the CBO estimates, Ryan's plan modernizes and strengthens our health care safety net, Medicaid, while providing universal access to health coverage, leaves Medicare and Social Security untouched for those already 55 or older, while making both systems permanently solvent with greater options, but also adjustments pegged to income for future retirees. What has been the liberal response to Ryan's entitlement reform proposals? Just this month, a Brookings fellow, quote, he would end Medicare, the cuts are draconian. Think progress. Quote, Ryan goes after the middle class tax benefits.